Hello and welcome back to Jules Math Tools. In our session today, we are looking at factor tips. So if you want to learn some tips about factors, let's get started. Tip number one that we're going to look at when we are thinking about factors. And our first tip is the first factor of every natural number is always 1. And remember that your natural numbers are your counting numbers. These are the numbers that begin at 1 and goes to infinity. So whenever you are listing the factors of any number that starts at 1 and goes to infinity, 1 will always be the first factor. So let's look at an example of our factors for 20. Notice that in listing my factors for 20, the first factor that I have listed for 20 is 1. And since 20 is a natural number, 1 should be its first factor. Tip number 2. The last factor of every natural number is always the number that you are listing the factor of. So if I'm listing the factor of any number, the last number that I should have listed as its factor should be that number. So let's look at my factors for 20. Notice that my numbers start in chronological order from least to greatest, my first factor being 1 and the last factor being 20. So remember to always list your factors in order from least to greatest. Tip number 3. All the factors must be less than the number that you are listing the factors of. So let's look back at my example that I had for 20. Notice that in listing all of my factors for 20, and as I'm listing them from least to greatest, I'm able to see that all of these numbers 1, 2, 4, 5, and 10 are all smaller than my factor 20. So that means if I'm listing the factors for 20, I should never have a number listed as a factor for that number that is larger than that number. Remember that these are the numbers that we are multiplying to get 20. So if I have a number like 40 listed, naturally you should know that there's no number that you're going to multiply 40 by that's going to give you the product 20. So excluding fractions, sticking with natural numbers now, remember just whole are natural numbers. So there's no natural number that I can multiply 40 by that's going to give me the product of 20. So keep that in mind as you are listing your factors, that the largest factor of the number that you're listing a factor of should be that number. So tip number 4. Now this is a tip that I did not remember when I was listing my tips in my factors video, but I remembered it afterward and I had to include it here. So tip number 4 is factors are always grouped in pairs unless the number is squared. So let's look back at our factors for our number 20 that we were using. Now in looking at my factors for my number 20, this is the next awesome reason why your factors should be listed from least to greatest. In listing your factors from least to greatest, it will help you to be able to identify where a factor may be missing. So you'll be able to group these factors together with their respective pair, and then if a number is missing, you'll be able to identify or have an idea as to what number or and its pair that goes together to give you that product. So let's look at our factors for 20. We have 1 times 20 that will give us 20. We have 2 times 10 that's going to give us 20. And then we have 4 times 5 that also gives us 20. So when I have these numbers listed from least to greatest, I'm able to tell which number is missing its respective pair. And even in having the numbers in order, it will help me to get a number gauge, I would say, or a number range as to what area or what respective grouping of numbers I should be looking at. Because let's say that my factor 10 was missing, then I know that the pair that goes with the number 2 is somewhere between the number 5 and the number 20. So that would help me with being able to eliminate this number by simply looking at the 2 time table or thinking of the 2 time table and thinking of the number that I would multiply 2 by to give me the number 20. Now let's look at our factors for the number 25. 25 is a square number, and square number means that I have a number that was multiplied to itself that gave me the product of 25. Now in looking at my factors for 25, I have 1 times 25 that would equal 25, and then 5 would be the number that was squared to give me the product of 25. So because 5 is multiplied to itself, 5 will only be listed once. Now remember that when you're listing your factors, even though a number like 5, which is being squared, means that it's multiplied to itself, even though that 5 appears twice, when listing the factors, we still only write that number once. So remember that your factors come in pairs unless we have a squared number. Okay, so I hope this video is very helpful to you. We just listed 4 factor tips that you can use to help you when identifying and listing your factors. So I hope you were able to apply this to your question whenever you are challenged with listing the factors of a number. So make sure that you get some additional practice in, apply these tips, list your factors, see what is wrong, correct it, and make it better. And until next time, this is Jules Math Tools, where we make math easy.